On the last episode of µCast, I showed you how to update your particle device to a pre-release version of the firmware. The one problem with that, however, is that once you move forward, you're unable to use the simple web IDE to roll back. On this episode, I'll show you how to roll your firmware back to any previous version. As I mentioned last episode, once you've moved forward in releases, the web IDE and command line tools will not let you roll back. But what if you have to roll back because a new version of the firmware reveals an issue in your code? Or worse, the firmware itself has a bug and you need to get back to a working state. It's actually not that hard and only takes a few minutes. Before we get started on rolling your firmware back, there's a couple of things that you need to install. I'm not going to go through those because they're well documented in Particle's documentation, which I will link up below. But you'll need to install all of those dependencies first so that you're ready to build the firmware. Next up, you need to get the firmware from GitHub. And instead of having you watch that, I've gone ahead and cloned the repo using the URL that you see here. The next step is to check out the branch that we want to switch to. And so if I do a git branch here, you'll see it would help if I first switched directories. So let's do that. Now let's run that git branch. You'll see that I just have the develop branch. Now I want to get to a specific version of the firmware. And to do that, I'm going to need to check out a remote branch. And so the command for that is very simple. It's just git checkout -b, which says create a new branch. The name I'm going to give that is v0.5.2 because that is the version of the firmware that I'm going to roll back to for demonstration purposes. And then I put the path to that remote branch, which is going to be origin/release. And then on my Mac, if I just hit tab at this point, I get all of my options. And so I'm just going to select origin release version 0.5.2 and hit enter. And now you'll see that my branch changed to version 0.5.2. At this point, I'm ready to build the firmware. And to do that, it's a very simple command. First, I'm going to cd into the modules folder. This is where I need to run that command from. And the command is make clean all platform equals photon. Now, if you're programming for a different device, like an Electron, you would need to change that argument here. But you have to specify the platform. In my case, it's a photon, so I'll say platform equals photon. Then I'm going to do a -s, which will silence verbose output. Now, I have not had any problems building this before. If you are, however, go ahead and remove this -s argument so that you will see all of that output. But I'm going to leave it for now. And then we'll hit enter. Now, this is going to go ahead and build the firmware. There are 3 parts to this, and it can take anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes. For me, it seems to take on average around 5 minutes. So now's a great time to run and grab a snack and come back in a few. As you can see, the output of this command is 3 files: system-part1.elf, system-part2.elf, and user-part.elf. Now, I'm not going to talk about what all of those are. They're well documented in the Particle documentation, which I will also link up below if you want to learn more about what those 3 files are. But essentially, those are the 3 files that we need to flash onto our photon to roll the firmware version back. And so just to show this, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to plug in my photon, and then I'm going to hold the setup button for 3 seconds after it boots up until I start to get a blue flashing LED. And that means that I'm in listening mode. And what I can do from there, I'm going to go ahead and clear this to give us a fresh screen. I can check my version by using the screen utility by doing screen/dev/cu.usb modem 1411. That's my photon. I hit enter there. And then from here, if I just hit V, you'll see that the system firmware version is 0.6.0-RC.2, the same one that we moved forward to last episode. What I'll do now is reset my photon by holding down both buttons. And then I'm going to release just the reset button. It'll flash magenta, then it will flash yellow. Once it's flashing yellow, I can let go of the setup button. And so at this point, my photon is in a state where the LED is flashing yellow. that means that it's in DFU mode and it's ready to accept firmware files. At this point, I only have one more command to run, and it's a little different than the documentation from Particle. From their documentation, they say to run make space program-dfu. However, just as in the command that we ran before, we need to specify the platform or this will not work. So we'll do make platform equals photon space program-dfu, and we'll hit enter. And you'll see that this will start a download of the files. It will go through each one, that's system part 1, system part 2, and user part, to flash the firmware. Once all of those files are flashed, your Photon will reboot and launch the standard Tinker firmware, which it has now put on the Photon. And so again, if I hold the setup button for 3 seconds and wait for the LED to flash blue, that means I'm in listening mode. I can just call that screen command again, log back in, and if I hit V, you'll notice that my system firmware version is now 0.5.2. I've successfully rolled it back. If you have any questions on this process or run into any trouble, feel free to reach out in the comments below or find me on Twitter. I'm always happy to help. Otherwise, until next time, happy hacking.